Viva, welcome back. I have to say, you were on in November predicting what might happen in this case, and you nailed it.
Look, I hedged my bets a little bit like a lawyer, by saying if he were not charged, I would be shocked and flabbergasted at the politics coming into play. And just so your viewers know, I'm a Canadian, Quebec commercial litigator, so no expertise in New Mexico criminal law, but I've been following this story from day one when it happened, when I was in Virginia, about to go on Tim Pool, and the news broke, and followed the saga ever since.
Wow. Well, I have to say, you did me one better, because I was thinking, look, it's more of a civil case than a criminal case as far as Alec Baldwin is concerned, because even though a lot of us don't like Alec Baldwin for his politics, and he's kind of nasty, he's beating up a lot of people all the time, that it was clearly an accident. I mean, clearly he did not intend to shoot anybody, but the prosecutors are saying, yes, it was an accident. They're not claiming otherwise, but it was a reckless accident. It rises to the level of recklessness under the criminal law to where he should serve some time for it. And as Dan Abrams was saying yesterday, not just any time, but what they've charged him with could get him up to 5 years mandatory.
Yeah, that's it. A lot of lawyers, and I think lawyers who have a good conscience, don't like these mandatory minimum sentencing for these types of reasons. It leaves no discretion to the judge. It can be the source of some sort of jury nullification, where they say, we think he's guilty, but we're not willing to convict him so that he serves a mandatory minimum 5 year. And just to back it up a little bit, it's a situation where you look at it and say, it's an accident. It's a tragic accident, but you don't get into circumstances where people get shot and killed on a movie set and think that, it's not going to be somehow criminal in here. He didn't pull the trigger on purpose, although he denied pulling the trigger, but this doesn't happen if the trigger doesn't get pulled. He didn't put the live rounds in the gun, presumably. He didn't know they were there, presumably. How they got there, who knows? Maybe there's some shared criminal responsibility as well. But people don't get shot and die on movie sets without there being some, at the very least, highly likely criminal element in it, if only negligence. But what he's facing, it's not just involuntary manslaughter, but there's I just lost the word there. An aggravating factor.
An enhancement.
An enhancement, yeah, sorry, of when it involves a firearm, which can carry minimum 5 years. And that's serious stuff, especially given Baldwin's age.
Mm-hmm. Oh my! I mean, the thought of Alec Baldwin going to mandatory prison for 5 years is kind of stunning. So the prosecutors went on a little press tour to explain why they did this. You've got the main prosecutor, who's the DA out in New Mexico, and then you've got the woman she brought in as sort of a special prosecutor because they were outmanned in pursuing these charges against Alec Baldwin, against Hannah Gutierrez Reed, the armorer, and then they cut a deal with the first assistant director who he did a charge lower. It's something like criminal handling or negligent handling of a firearm. So they went on a press tour yesterday, and among others, they spoke with Judge Janine, my old pal from Fox News. Here's a bit of their explanation.
We definitely believe he pulled the trigger. The FBI lab report confirms that, so definitely the trigger was pulled.
All right, so his statement is not correct under any circumstance.
We don't believe it is.
Mr. Baldwin had a duty at the base level to never hold a gun and point it at a person while pulling the trigger. But he also had a duty as an actor and a producer on that set to have the bullets checked or to check them himself to make sure that they weren't live.
We believe Baldwin, as a producer, knows everything that goes on this set. And so, there was a lot of problems. There was a lot of, there were a couple accidental discharges. There was a lot of safety concerns that were brought to the attention of management, and he did nothing about it. So this was a loose and reckless scene where safety was compromised just to save money.
So a lot in there. What's your takeaway listening to that?
Well, first of all, the press tour, I don't see anything nefarious in it. This is a big charge against a big celebrity in a highly politicized environment. They have to go out and show that they have the grounds, the justification to do it. I don't know if you saw Joy Behar on The View this morning. I think it's the prosecutor that was called in, who's a Republican, and Joy Behar suggesting there might be politics to the prosecution because Alec Baldwin has been a target for Republicans. They need to do it. They need to flesh out, detail what are the justifications for actually pressing criminal charges against Baldwin. I don't think it needs much of a justification. And I'm going back to my initial assessment of this situation. the prediction I made a while back as to what actually happened. You hear the prosecutors or the district attorney, whatever their title is, talking about how there had been previous discharges on set to emphasize the negligence of safety on the set, and they're right. But the previous discharges were blanks, and so dummy rounds. It was not an accidental discharge of a live round. And my theory is Alec is known to have a temper. Even from his early interviews with George Stephanopoulos and him describing what happened, his roadside interviews in Vermont or wherever they were, he was describing a situation where it sounded like he was being told what to do by a director of photography who's not supposed to be giving direct instructions to a grade A actor like Alec. And because there had been prior discharges with no injury, no foul, of blanks, maybe he pulled the trigger on purpose, thinking it would just be a loud pop. It would scare the assistant. It would scare the director of photography. She'd stop bossing him around and they would go on. It's clear he had to have pulled the trigger. Whether or not pulling the hammer back, like he explained, while compressing the trigger could have also allowed the hammer to go back and set the bullet off. It's another argument. It's quite clear he pulled the trigger. And then the only question is going to be why and how.
Yeah, he clearly did. He's going to lose on that argument that he didn't pull the trigger. The jury's going to believe the FBI over Alec Baldwin. And that your own instincts, of course, will tell you a gun goes off when you pull the trigger, in particular this kind of gun. So he's going to lose on that. But there was some interesting stuff in there. A duty to detect whether the bullets were dummies or live rounds. Please, no. That's not going to work. Even the armorer clearly couldn't do that or failed in her attempts to do that. The dummy rounds, their whole job is to look exactly like a real bullet. And I've talked to gun experts on this. If you shake the one, you can hear stuff shaking around inside. And if you shake the other one, you hear nothing. I can't remember which is which, but that's how they determine.
The dummy rounds with less gunpowder so that there's less of a discharge, from my understanding. And it's a weird thing when they're describing...
But let me just finish my point. So you think they're going to convince a jury that the armorer who specializes in guns and ammo screwed that up, wasn't able to do it, got confused, whatever. But Alec Baldwin, he could have taken each bullet out and shaken it and totally... No, I can make a case for negligence against Alec Baldwin. It doesn't include telling live rounds from dummies.
When they're describing that, to me, it sort of sounds like they're confusing or confounding Alec's role as a producer to oversee safety versus Alec Baldwin's
they say they have 2 points. That's A and B. I'm on A right now with you, which is the alleged duty to separate the lives from the dummies. And then I want to do B.
Well, when I listen to that, it sounds to me like they're just sort of amalgamating his role as a producer with his role as an individual. Like as a producer, he had the obligation to ensure safety on set, and so not necessarily that Alec Baldwin himself had to shake each round to make sure it was a dummy versus a live. I think they mean at large.
They said in one of their interviews he needed to do it or he needed to see somebody do it in front of him.
Okay. I mean, they said, look, that's not going to be the evidence that they're going to need to adduce at the trial. The bottom line is, was it negligent for him to discharge a firearm, knowing it's a real firearm, in the direction of a human? And if his defense is, I thought they were dummy rounds, well, it's still not much of a defense. And then the question is going to be, how did the live rounds get there? What the prosecutors also discovered, or they've stated now, is that he actually had live rounds in his holster, or in that belt. I think it's called the belt. I am also not a firearm aficionado, but I've learned a few things here. No, I think they're saying certain things which are just to, do part of the press tour. He should have known, yada yada. But I think they're speaking at large as a producer, as someone overseeing the production of this movie. He had the overall obligation to make sure it was safe.
Okay, let's talk about that. That because now we're on B. The set was a mess. There were at least 6 live rounds on set. How did they get there? Who were there safety oversights and so on, the accidental discharges and so on. And there's going to be more evidence. I happen to know this for a fact. I've seen some of it, that there's going to be more evidence that safety concerns were raised and ignored by those in charge. And the prosecutors have said that he had a duty as a producer to make sure that didn't happen. He was a producer. But the reality is you get slapped that producer label just to make you look good, just to be sort of glorious. And then you get the label if you're really the producer, if you're the workhorse and from what we're hearing, he has a good argument he was just getting the glory. And by the way, I happen to have the same agent as Alec Baldwin for a long time. And at various points, he was negotiating various deals for me in which I was going to produce this or going to be a producer on that. They never came to fruition. But like, that's his thing, is to get you named as a producer. And I'm very sure if he was doing that for me, this was Alec Baldwin's case too. So they're going to have to prove that it was more than just a producer in name only.
Well, I'm not sure that element is going to come in terms of his individual responsibility. At the end of the day, yeah, he'll say I was a producer for title. I was not a functional producer. I didn't have anything to do about the ins and outs. That's not really going to be where, on a criminal individual level, the responsibility is going to lie or the argument is going to be made. The bottom line is, I think we can actually just probably set aside what title of producer he was. Bottom line, at the end of the day, he's in this set. He claims to have had extensive experience with real guns, real bullets.
But now you're going to something like, I'm going off of what the prosecution is saying their case is based on. Like, I'm with you. You and I could have had this discussion 2 days ago before they spoke out, but now they're detailing why they charged him. And what I'm saying to you is, this stuff isn't very persuasive. Like many people, I am eating healthier, and that's why I love good olive oil. It makes such a big difference in your meals. And by good, I mean fresh. All right. Olive oil packs the most flavor and the healthiest nutrients when it's fresh from the farm. And that is the problem with supermarket olive oils. They're not fresh. You ever think about it? How many months that thing's been sitting there growing stale? This is why I like my olive oil direct from small, award-winning farms. And you can have it thanks to a guy named TJ Robinson, also known as the olive oil hunter. When I first tasted TJ's farm fresh oils, I wasn't expecting. I'm like, is it really going to? It does make a difference. It does. They've got these beautiful, vibrant, grassy flavors. They're delicious on salad, veggies, pasta, meat, fish, whatever you put olive oil on. As an introduction to his fresh pressed olive oil club, TJ's willing to send you a full-size $39 bottle of one of the world's finest artisanal olive oils for just $1 itty-bitty to help him cover shipping. Best of all, there's never a commitment to buy anything, and you can cancel your membership at any time. Get your free $39 bottle for just $1 shipping and taste the difference freshness makes. Go to harvestfreshnow.com. That's harvestfreshnow.com for a free bottle and pay just $1 in shipping. harvestfreshnow.com. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.